big food companies are targeting children, and they have ultra-processed food. It's like a science. They took a lot of the scientists actually from the tobacco industry, which made that product so addicting. As a doctor, even having gone to med school 30 years ago, they still aren't teaching doctors nutrition in med school. I believe it's about 20% of med schools currently in the US offer any nutrition education. Technology is great. It's just ironic that with all the advances in technology over the last several decades, this country has gotten sicker. For the first time in many years, life expectancy is going down in the United States.
Backwards. Yeah, but my first line of defense is always, okay, get the vitamin D, the zinc, go in the sauna, do the cold plunge, do all these things that I know make me feel good. Today I have Dr. William Bruno, a top plastic surgeon in West Hollywood. We are going to tell you everything you need to know about longevity, wellness, anti-aging in conjunction with plastic surgery. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joanna Pallante. I'm a mom and entrepreneur, and I have a passion for holistic living. I know you are very passionate and disciplined when it comes to your food, your diet. You're a routine guy. You absolutely adhere to a pretty strict diet during the week, and you're in the gym every night after work religiously. So what motivated you, I guess, in the first place to become a doctor and made you so passionate about healthy living?
Me, as far as becoming a doctor, I had no physicians in the family. I, as a child, had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, so I was in and out of doctor's offices a lot when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I just always wanted to be a doctor, and as far as surgery, I always wanted to be a surgeon to sort of have a direct impact on someone's life, and got into plastic surgery because of the creativity of it. It's very artistic, a lot of problem solving skills involved, and we get to operate on men and women, young and old, literally head to toe, although now mostly I'm doing aesthetic, cosmetic type procedures. But in my training, we did everything. We did hand surgery, we did reconstructive surgery, facial traumas, cancer surgery, that sort of thing. But
you delivered a baby too, you told me.
Yeah, in medical school. Yeah, sort of a requirement, I guess. We had to deliver a baby. I went to med school in Philadelphia in the early to mid 90s, and that's where my interest, at least in surgery, developed. And then throughout general surgery, developed an interest in plastic surgery. And then I came out here, and I've been in private practice since 2004.
So do you believe that there's a lot more happening within the food? Like, I see all these things on Instagram. I'm a mom. I look very carefully at the labels of what I give to my daughter. And there's some brands that are touted as being healthy, and I look at the ingredient list and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so far from healthy.
I think as far as the rise in obesity and chronic disease, you have to look back maybe into the 1950s or 60s, where there was very little obesity in this country. And one of the culprits, I guess you'd say, is people started with more and more, let's say, snacking, because there's availability of more processed foods, frozen foods, packaged goods, maybe in the 60s, and really this sort of ramped up in the 70s more so. So you had people with more availability to food. Then there was sort of a low-fat craze in the 70s, maybe into the early 80s. So they started to strip the food of a lot of its nutrients. So they took out fat, making low-fat foods, but unfortunately it got replaced with these very high amounts of refined sugars, refined carbohydrates, a lot of these vegetable oils, seed oils that you hear about a lot now, especially in the media and social media, like vegetable oils, corn oils, etc. And you saw this very steep rise from, let's say, 1950 to now, or 1960 to now. And that has contributed, I think, significantly. It's the food supply, the quality of the food, and the degree of ultra processing that's happening to the food. So even if you do get food now that's grown from the earth, the soil has changed so much because the land is really used for crops to feed livestock. So now, in 2024, the food is completely different. Like if you have let's say an apple today, it was very different than one 50 or 60 years ago, like the nutrient content in that. And that's where the problem is. And that's all these types of meats have lots of hormones in them, and they're not pure. They have a lot of sodium injected into them. And unfortunately, that's sort of trickled down from generation to generation, so that now that children in America are more obese than ever. And it doesn't help that a lot of the big food companies are targeting children, and they have ultra processed food. It's like a science. They took a lot of the scientists actually from the tobacco industry, which made that product so addicting. And these people are now working for the Nabiscos and a lot of the big food companies, creating food that has it's called a bliss point, where they make the food so tasty with fat, sugar, and salt that people just can't stop, like chips, for example.
Yeah.
And that's by design. And the breakfast cereals with the sugar. So you have this whole generation of children, at least for the last several generations probably, on breakfast cereals, high in sugar, low in nutrients, that are getting, more obese, sicker. You have kids now getting type 2 diabetes. You would never see that like 30 years ago.
I think the rise in autism, diabetes, all of these things, it's a major concern for me as a parent. And, I think the vaccination schedule has increased. That's another thing that people are becoming aware of now. I mean, I think to go to school in California, children are required to have or it's recommended that they get 50 vaccines. I mean, this is unheard of. It seems to be unnecessary. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I know that something with that just doesn't add up for me as a parent. It feels excessive. I prefer to take a more natural, holistic approach whenever possible. And I think when it comes to the food and the choices that I can make and control for my daughter, I just take an extra step. I check every label before I bring it home, right? So I use this app called Bobby Approved. I talk about it in another podcast episode. It's great. Sometimes it's confusing for people. They don't know, you're a doctor, you're trained to know what to look for, but I can scan any item and look it up in this app, and Bobby will either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And some things that are promoted as healthy, they get the thumbs down, and he highlights exactly what the bad ingredients are, so you know what to look for going forward. So I think it's important that you weed out what you can, right? I mean, obviously you go to restaurants, you do different things where you can't control what you're consuming, but if you can control it in your own home, why not?
Yeah, and you have to do that. You have to be active, as you say, and there are a number of apps like that, not only for food, but for like cleaning products you might get for your home, or self-care products, shampoos, etc. There's an app I use, I think it's called Yucca, it's YUKA, and there's another one by the Environmental Working Group, .org, it's EWG. So you could scan things and see, like, is this soap something I should bring into the home? Is this shampoo, toothpaste, deodorant, or anything? Because there's so many toxins, like, hidden in the home, in the walls of your home, in the sheets, in the food, in the air, in the water, that you have to be proactive. And you as a mom certainly have to be the advocate for your family, your child. And I think people are starting to sort of get that message.
Yeah.
But as a doctor, even having gone to med school 30 years ago, they still aren't teaching doctors nutrition in med school. I believe it's about 20% of med schools currently in the US offer any nutrition education, and that education might be like 2 hours. And it's usually something like a deficiency, like rickets or scurvy, that we don't really see anymore. And it's taught like in the part of a biochemistry class, but there's no practical nutrition being taught to doctors, which has made doctors very, we're very reactive. We treat disease, we treat acute disease really well, but not very good at preventing it. So you, the patient, the consumer, has to take the initiative and say, yeah, I'm not going to bring this food into my home. I'm not going to bring this laundry detergent into my home, what have you. I mean, there's just countless toxins, and you have to really be like the CEO of your own health, and really the CEO of your family's health, and sort of look out for everything, because it's really hard. You can't escape all these toxins. All you can do is minimize it as best you can.
What are some of the things that you think people can use to get ahead of these things, so that they're not going to the doctor after the problem has already formed? They can, basically be the CEO of their health, as you said, and take charge of their life. Like, what are some of your favorite things that you personally do and recommend to your patients?
Yeah, so what I discovered, as a plastic surgeon talking to patients, is they weren't getting this counseling, certainly from their primary care doctors or their HMOs, wherever they're going for their health care. So I would try to share this with them. So I developed a course, it's a digital course, where I try to walk them through sort of the foundations of health. So to your question, nutrition, I think, is one of the sort of the pillars of, of longevity. Advocating really, to eat whole foods. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of people get caught up in the arguments of, carnivore, keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, and, I think what most people need to do is just stop eating all the ultra processed foods, at least limit it, and eat the majority of your foods whole foods, preferably organic. And if you're going to eat eggs, pasture raised eggs. If you're going to eat meat, grass fed, organic meat. Beyond nutrition, I think, exercise, the importance of that, both not only just steps, daily steps, I would say at least 5,000 up to 10,000 if you can get there. A combination of aerobic training, a combination of low intensity, high intensity, and then weight training. I think most people leave out the weight training part. I'm not sure why. I think the culture has been very cardio driven, especially in women. There's they do cardio 5 days a week and then their body looks the same. Well, maybe they didn't change their diet, but we lose a lot of muscle mass as we age, so it's important to keep that. That's a sort of an organ of longevity, I guess you could say, is having more muscle on you. So beyond exercise, I would say, and this one's forgotten too, is sleep, the importance of sleep. You could have a great diet and exercise every day, but if you're not sleeping properly, all your hormones will be misaligned. And I find this a lot where patients, they tell me they're doing everything else right, and then you inquire about their sleep, I'm like, I sleep 5 hours a night. Very few people can survive on that. I should say thrive on that.
Yeah.
You need to be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and people need to go out of their way to do that. You have to go to bed around the same time. You have to wake up around the same time. And there's so many, technological ways to track it. The Oura Ring, the Fitbit, Apple Watch. So it makes not only tracking your sleep and making improvements in it, but going back to the nutrition and exercise, you can track all these things. And then as important, even as you're sort of going up this scale, is which tests should you be getting, which diagnostic tests, screening tests that can, prevent a disease from happening. A lot of times we just get to it too late. You hear someone, oh, they were fine and they died of pancreatic cancer and they died in 2 weeks. Well, there are ways to screen for that. You can get a full body MRI. You could screen your whole body for cancer, which I'd recommend if you're over 50. You could get a blood test that screens for 50 cancers. Now, these tests aren't covered by insurance, so there's some cost involved. But the number one killer in the United States is heart disease. So I would tell any man or woman over 40, get the calcium scan. That's a test I got, and it's a test that it's not covered by insurance generally. It may cost like $200. It's probably one of the most underused screening tests in medicine. And it will tell you if you have heart disease or not. And if you don't, well, then great.
Yeah, I know when you mentioned, some of these things that people are very quick to prescribe. Like I know a lot of people personally who just, they have the high cholesterol and it's, okay, here's Lipitor. But did you do anything to fix that before you went straight to the Lipitor? Because that would be what I would do first, right? Okay, I have this problem, how do I fix it? So even recently I went for a physical. I go for a physical exam every year. I just like to get my blood work checked. I think for women, especially women who are trying to get pregnant, check your vitamin D, check your iron, check your TSH. So when you're trying to get pregnant, your thyroid is so important. And I never knew that when I was trying to get pregnant and going through IVF. And just this year alone, my doctor said to me, oh, you're low in vitamin D. And I think people in general are low in vitamin D. And I should probably be the least likely person to be low in vitamin D. I live in California, I get outdoors, I walk my dog, I take a multivitamin, and I still came up low vitamin D. So screen for these things, get ahead of them and correct the problem as needed and do it as holistically as you can before you're the next guy on Lipitor or whatever, deficiency that you're trying to solve.
Right, and most people aren't getting tested. You mentioned that, getting blood work and vitamin D, for example, yeah, that's one of the most common deficiencies that you see. Vitamin D is technically a hormone and a vitamin, but especially you're talking about, women getting pregnant. It's really important to be on top of that. I think a lot of people, they will go to the doctor once a year, if that, and they live in this very, it's a very reactive place where they're not being proactive. And, again, now there's so many options out there where you can get blood work done. They'll come to your home and draw your blood or do a finger stick test. I use a company, it's called Life Force, where every 3 months they come to my office, or they come to your home, they draw your blood, and they do a very comprehensive panel, and then you review that with one of their doctors, on a telemedicine visit, and they go over these things. So it's not just basic cholesterol, electrolytes. It's, deeper things like with cardiovascular risk. There's something called ApoB, which is apolipoprotein B. So you might have high LDL, but you want to know these other sort of risk factors that most people don't know about, and I don't expect them to know about it, but if they're not getting their answers from their doctor, or they're just seeing them once a year, and that visit's maybe 10 or 15 minutes, that's it. They're not really thriving. They didn't really do a thorough sort of workup there. So I think, to your point, being proactive, getting lab tests, more frequently, and then having that targeted to like, which test do you need? Like, do you need to get your heart looked at? Do you need to do a stress test? Are you a higher risk for cancer? Things of that nature. But I think going back to the vitamin D, the supplements, I think, is sort of a popular topic. I have a lot of patients like, well, what supplements should I take?
Maybe we can just touch on your longevity program and what you're offering to people as, if somebody were to subscribe to you have an online plan. Maybe you can just talk about what someone would expect from being, a subscription-based person.
The purpose of the digital course was to sort of educate people on these topics of, it's like a 6-week course, but it's 7 hours of content. So I tell people you could probably get through it in a week or two if you're really dedicated. And just going through, trying to present a lot of evidence-based data on nutrition, exercise, sleep, et cetera, all the sort of categories I mentioned before. And then at the end, the last module is advising patients and informing them how to create their own customized longevity program. Literally from how much protein you should be eating each day, how much fiber and calories, and then going through your exercise program. How many hours can you dedicate a week? How much should be cardio? How much should be weights? How to optimize your sleep environment, what supplements you should take for sleep, which diagnostic tests you should get. So it kind of walks them through that. And, it's sometimes hard to give universal advice because the way this is going, the way that at-home testing kits, it's becoming very personalized, which I think is great. So you can get like a genetic test that will tell you what you're predisposed to, but that doesn't mean you're going to get that disease. And then you can change your lifestyle so you don't get these diseases, or you can minimize the effects of it. So especially now with the advent of artificial intelligence, all these tests are becoming very accurate, and there's a lot you can do from your own home and then take this information and bring it to your doctor. So, my course isn't a substitute for a doctor. It's to sort of give you the autonomy to say, well, this is where I'm at. Which test should we get? And then hopefully your doctor will work with you. And if you need to find another doctor, sometimes there's functional medicine doctors who take really deep dives at the root cause, because a lot of conventional doctors, they just treat the symptoms. Or you can go to like a lifestyle medicine doctor or integrative medicine. I'm a traditionally trained Western doctor, but I think you have to have an open mind to these things. Acupuncture, there's, Eastern medicine. So, yeah. But anyway, that was the point of my course. And then I offer coaching through that. I'm in the process actually of creating a coaching program around that, where I would work with patients individually and sort of walk them through that, getting them to their goal. A lot of people, they want to lose weight, or a lot of people, they might have, heart disease or something. But I think you can sort of take longevity, and someone, who comes to me who wants to lose weight, they say that, but really they want to live longer too. So the longevity is sort of coupled into that sort of program.
So you will offer coaching, so that's great. So
yeah.
Somebody can really tailor a program with you.
Yeah, and it will involve blood testing that they'll do at home. Then we go over the results with them, and then recommend various tests or interventions based on where they're at. I'm a big advocate of like DEXA scans, for example. A DEXA scan is a scan, it scans your body and it could tell you your body composition, percent body fat, muscle mass, bone density, which anyone can get. You can go anywhere in the country for like $50 and it'll give you a lot of information. It'll tell you how much visceral fat you have, how much subcutaneous fat, and so on.
When I was trying to lose my pregnancy weight, I gained 50 pounds in pregnancy. I had a scale that I ordered. It's super affordable. It's like $20 on Amazon. It's by a brand, eTech City. And I can step on that scale right now. It's linked to an app on my phone, and it'll show me all of those body fat percentage, visceral fat, things like that. And it's very helpful. It will allow you to set goals and track your progress. So I can see at different points of the year, maybe in December, I slack a little bit for the holidays. In January, I do a little reset cleanse, and I can really see how the numbers shift based on my dietary changes. So that's, I think, something that, anybody at home that's listening can just go on Amazon and buy. I can include a link to that. And it's just a way to keep yourself on track.
Yeah. And I think, speaking of tracking, I think that's what people need to be doing more and more of, because of the accessibility of all these great wearables. I mentioned the Oura Ring before. There's so many ways to track your sleep, track your steps. That's on every iPhone, track your macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat you're taking, calories. I don't want people to get obsessed with counting calories per se, but you should at least, if you did it for a week, maybe measuring, weighing food, maybe not, but at least scanning your food. There's MyFitnessPal, all these apps, you can do that and get a sense for how many calories are you eating per day, and then go from there and say, okay, I should reduce this by 15 or 20%. I want to lose fat, build muscle, and so on. So, the saying is what gets measured gets improved. So if you're tracking these things, you have a chance to at least improve them. Same with your blood work. Same with getting a scan of your heart done, or getting an MRI of your body, to rule out an early tumor or something like that. So technology is great. It's just ironic that with all the advances in technology over the last several decades, this country has gotten sicker and more obese, and we're like maybe 43rd in the world in life expectancy out of like 200 countries, which is horrible. And, you would think we'd be in the top 10, but we're not. And actually, for the first time in many years, life expectancy is going down in the United States.
Backwards. Yeah.
So this generation will have children that will live shorter lives potentially, which is like hard to imagine.
It's crazy. Well, I hope you learned as much today as I did. I feel like I'm going to implement so many things that Dr. Bruno shared here today. We are going to link his longevity program. So if you'd like to sign up, I'll offer a discount code. You can really get into some personalized programs with Dr. Bruno. I'm also going to link my guide to how I personally lost 50 pounds after pregnancy. And we'll share links to many of the products that we reference in the videos as well. Thanks for coming by.